focused and fearless. Here's a roundup of stories we're watching now. I'm Sean Yao. The Philippine Genome Center detected more than 80 new cases of the South African and UK COVID-19 variants, with most cases found in Metro Manila. To shed more light on the matter, we have on the line Professor Guido David of the Octa research team. Good afternoon, Prof. Guido. We're seeing a continuous rise in cases and now 3,000. Can we finally attribute this to the emergence of new variants?
Hi, Shania. Yes, good afternoon. Yes, I believe we can attribute it partly to the emergence of the variant. We don't have the solid evidence that will tell us that the variant is widespread, but it does follow logically that, the increase in cases may be attributed to the presence of the variant. I mean, that could be what is triggering the increase in cases. And yes, we did register 3,000 cases today. I'm afraid this is not the last of it. I mean, we project that it will continue to increase for some more time. So we really need to scale up, our efforts to curb this upward trend. We really need to reverse the trend now.
All right, loud and clear, Prof. Just as we're battling these new variants, there are more cases of mutations of interest. I'm referring to the N501Y and E484K mutations or strains that were also detected. How concerned should we be as ordinary citizens against the emergence of these new strains or mutations?
We should really be concerned about these mutations. And some of them are not identified, but they have similar mutations to the UK variant and the South African variant. There have been many mutations already all over the world. So I think we really need to scale up our border controls for international travel, because it's been worrying that we've been letting a lot of variants enter the Philippines, and this is not the way to go if we want to open up the economy. I mean, it's okay to have travelers come in, but we should really be more strict about what the protocols that we have for international travelers. And in fact, we got to think that maybe we should revisit and rethink some of these protocols for international travelers.
Okay, so just to clarify what you said, you're not entirely for a travel ban or something like that, but instead, we have to, be more vigilant and again revisit and maybe possibly tweak our protocols on the ground.
That is correct. We're not for a travel ban. We understand that, we have returning Filipinos, we have foreign travelers who need to come in here, but we need to be strict about some of our border controls, and not just be strict. As you said, we need to rethink and revisit. What are these? For example, I would just like to highlight some of the differences. In some other countries, or in many other countries, 14-day quarantine is mandatory. In our case, it's not mandatory. They can be released after 5 days if they test negative. However, that would be fine if the PCR test results have 100% accuracy, but they don't. And in fact, some studies point out that the accuracy, the false negative rate could be as much as 20%, even on the 5th day. I think we've already tweak some of the past mistakes that we had. For example, in the past, if they arrive and they test negative, then they don't have to have the quarantine on the first day. But upon doing research, we see that even for PCR test results, on the first day that they have acquired the virus, the false negative rate could be as high as I think 80% or something. It's really high. So that means that if we follow these looser protocols, we could be letting a lot of people, international travels with the virus and the variant enter the Philippines, and that is not the way to go. Other countries are very strict with their travel protocols. Even if they have a negative test result, they still need to have a 14-day quarantine period. So I'm not suggesting anything specific. I'm just saying we need to rethink some of these because what we're seeing is that we're letting a lot of travelers with the virus come in and somehow spread the virus here in the Philippines, and we can't allow that.
Definitely, we have reported cases of positives coming out after the 5th day and other cases abroad as well. Now, back home, closer to home at least, the DOH earlier said that community transmission of these variants still cannot be determined, which is sort of in line with what you said. You said cannot, there is no definite proof. Is this still the case? Well, you already answered that question, but what should we do about it then, both as maybe policymakers and, of course, as ordinary citizens?
Right. Yeah, we need to be more vigilant. This version of the virus. This is not the same that we've been accustomed to for the past several months. In fact, I say that we have gotten used to the virus, the older version, and we've sort of gotten to know how to manage it. So we haven't really had an increase in cases since August. It's been a downward trend and it's been flat since November. But now we've had an increase in cases, and this is alarming because it means that we need to be more strict about our protocols. We don't necessarily have to have a lockdown. But we need to be, we need to go back to the basics, wearing face mask and face shield, hand washing, avoiding crowded places, and limiting our time spent inside establishments which are, let's say, air-conditioned. These are some of the same, protocols that we need to use against the variant, but we need to implement them more strictly because this variant is more contagious, more infectious, by as much as maybe 50%. So that means some of the things we used to do maybe are not as effective if we don't do it strictly.
All right. Definitely cooperation and discipline apart from implementation very much in order. One last question, Professor Guido. I've been receiving messages about hospitals becoming, or at least going over capacity. Is there any truth to that? Just to at least, clarify some of these statements that are going around social media and, of course, chat groups.
Yes, we've been hearing those. We always report the hospital occupancy in Metro Manila. I believe it's around 41% occupancy right now. But of course, it varies, and there are places where hospital occupancy is higher. For example, in Makati, occupancy is already at around 80% plus. And there are LGUs where the hospital occupancy is already above 60%. And that is an average over the entire LGU. So that means that there may be some hospitals which are already nearing capacity and some hospitals which still have a lot of bed availability. So it varies. It's not yet consistent throughout the entire NCR, but this will change if cases continue to rise. Definitely beds will start filling up. It's probably the case that private hospitals get filled up quicker, but we'll definitely see other hospitals get filled up soon if we don't reverse this trend. That's why it's very important that we reverse this trend. We don't really have a big window to reverse this trend because right now we're already at 900 cases per day. And if we get to 2,000 and even 3,000, that would be very critical for our health system.
All right, and we have hit 3,000 cases today. We'll see you about tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time and your insights and your advice, Professor Guido David of the Octa research team. More health workers in private hospitals are now willing to be vaccinated with China's Sinovac shots. To give us the details, JC Cosico is joining us live from Mandaluyong. JC, what's behind this change of heart?
Sean, more health workers in private hospitals are willing to receive China's Sinovac vaccines. The PHAP of the Philippines said that around 70% of health workers had earlier agreed to be inoculated. It fell down by more than half after the workers found out that they would be given the China-made jab. But with the vaccine roll kicking off this week, PHAP President Dr. Jose Rene de Grano said more private healthcare workers were convinced to get the shot. Other medical frontliners, though, still prefer other vaccine brands like AstraZeneca, which arrived on Thursday night. They include senior health workers who are not eligible to receive the China-made jab. De Grano said private hospitals are now gearing up for the immunization using other vaccine brands. Here's PHAP President Dr. De Grano.
Biglang bumaba, then tumaas naman ulit ng konti yung ng confidence nung nakita nila yung nangyari sa PGH saka sa different hospitals in Metro Manila. We are preparing our setup para pag sinabi sa amin na okay, dadalang namin kayo ng bakuna, and then we are ready already.
Sean, PHAP also reported a decrease in moderate and severe COVID-19 cases. Bed occupancy is now at 30 to 40%. They're also calling on frontliners to get the vaccines to shield them from the virus. Back to you.
Thank you for that update. That was News 5's JC Cosico joining us live from Mandaluyong. Metro Manila mayors will be meeting with the health department tomorrow to discuss the reopening of cinemas. This comes after the local chief executives deferred yet again the reopening of movie houses today. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos said that mayors will vote tomorrow on whether or not they will allow cinemas and other leisure venues to operate. Abalos also notes that while LGUs have the autonomy to decide on directives, it would be easier for all if mayors have a uniform and cohesive position.
So siguro dito, pwede na ilatag nila temporarily habang tumataas at may upsurge. Ano ang magiging polisiya ba talaga? No? And if ever kung papayagan, let's say papayagan mo certain activities, ano ang uniform na restrictions mo para hindi na marito ang tao paglipat sa ibang lugar, iba na naman.
Healthcare workers are still top priority for vaccination as recommended by the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG. In an interview with us earlier today, NITAG's Dr. Maria Consorcia Quizon said they are asking the government to cover all HCWs or healthcare workers before proceeding to other groups. Quizon said over 1 million doses of AstraZeneca and Sinovac shots arrived, enough to cover only 500,000 out of up to 1.8 million healthcare workers in the country. She also noted that AstraZeneca jabs have data from trials conducted among the elderly, but given the limited supply, senior citizens may not be inoculated, at least for now.
It's still not enough to cover our health workers. So priority are still our health workers.
Moving on to the economy, we have the country's inflation rate clocking in at 4.7% in February, driven primarily by the high price of meat. Dale De Vera with the full report.
Malu, a vendor from Quezon City, can barely get her family a day's worth of decent meals with a 200 peso daily budget. She says it is even harder to earn money for her family of 6 in this pandemic.
Pinagkakasya ko lang yung 200 ko sa loob ng isang araw. Sobrang hirap talaga po ngayon kagawa ng sa pandemic ngayon. Ang hirap kitain ng pera sa ngayong panahon na to.
Philippine Statistics Authority says that last February's inflation hit 4.7%, the highest since January 2019. Economist Nicholas Mapa attributes this to the problem in pork supply. To balance the supply, Mapa says the country could import supply, but only as a short-term solution to still protect the local hog industry.
The key issue here is kung ma-address ng authorities yung supply side issues, di ba? So kung pinabayaan nila yung African swine fever problem, baka tuloy-tuloy talaga yung increase.
Economist Ronilio Balberan agrees with this, but he expects pork prices to go back to normal once the supply and demand chain becomes clear.
The one that exacerbates this particular inflation is actually the information asymmetry. So we really don't know what's happening in the middle. So what's really driving this particular cost, and that's why this is driving the government to impose all these price freezes, no? So because we don't know what's happening.
As of now, Filipinos' purchasing power continues to weaken as inflation accelerated for the fifth straight month. But MAPA does not advise the public to cut spending as it will slow down or even stall economic activities. For his part, Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion suggests a gradual easing of curbs to rev up consumer spending. He is also for the relaxation of age restrictions to allow more economic activity.
If you were to choose two, what would spur economic activity? Definitely, it's to relax the age, and Secretary Mon Lopez even supports that, and the economic team.
Malacanang says the president wants to see 2 million Filipinos inoculated first before lifting quarantine statuses of various parts of the country. For News 5, Dale De Vera, we are One News.
In the PBA, the Barangay Ginebra Gin Kings dealt Greg Slaughter to the Northport Batang Pier in exchange for Christian Stan Hardiger. The deal between two former number one picks has been approved by the league board per the PBA website. With this trade, Stan Hardinger will join the Kings' solid front court led by Japet Aguilar. Meanwhile, Slaughter will be returning to the PBA after being away for a year. The five-time All-Star has been training in the United States during his absence. For more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.